This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing News, and it is my pleasure to be joined by the former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, the one and only Lennox Lewis. How you doing, Len?
I'm good, great.
Good, very good. We were just chatting beforehand that you were admiring my 1909 T-shirt, weren't you?
I was. It was great. It's good. I like it.
Looking forward to the Lennox Lewis range coming soon.
Yes, make sure you buy it.
There we go. Well, seeing as I've done my plug, let's give your plug a go. I am here, of course, to discuss your upcoming tour. I just briefly mentioned to you before, very much looking forward to going on tour, aren't you? Always looking forward to reconnecting with your fans.
Yes, I am. I'm very excited about going to major cities that I haven't been to before. Gateshead, different cities.
Now, I'm not going to be silly and ask you to divulge what people are going to see on the tour. I know you well enough to know at this point you're going to just instruct people to turn up on the night. But yeah, looking forward to kind of reliving some of your, I guess, your finer moments from throughout your career. Yeah,
I'm sure that a lot of people have a lot of questions to ask me about different things that happened in my career. I know the Four Kings are on right now. I'm sure they've got questions for me with that. And I'm excited to actually go on the trip.
You mentioned that, the Four Kings documentary, which is available now on Amazon. Did you enjoy that? Obviously, we've got to see a different side to yourself, your likes of Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, etc. You enjoy that?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was a great part of British history that definitely should have came out, because, boxing is so exciting right now in England and in Europe. And, even back when I was boxing, it was exciting and amazing when I was there.
I was just speaking to that young man behind us over there about kind of the glory years in the 90s and how boxing has kind of changed since then, really. How would you compare modern day boxing to those glory years of the 90s when you had those huge figures and the likes of yourself, Frank Bruno, etc., kind of trailblazers for boxing in the 90s? How would you compare that to now?
Yeah, it was, definitely harder back then. The fans were alive back then. There were different things going on back then, and we had to contend with. And I would say it was great. It was great. Different eras, different times.
Okay, well, we won't divulge too much of what could potentially be coming up, but remember, you can go and see the one and only Lennox Lewis, Goldstar Promotions. Tickets are on sale now. Get them while they're hot. Right, Lennox, last time I spoke to you was about 6 weeks ago. It was on the fight week of Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua. Of course, another heavyweight dust-up between two Brits. A spectacular performance from Daniel Dubois on the night at Wembley Stadium.
Unbelievable performance by Daniel Dubois. I mean, he came out like a champ, and he went to work, and he threw an unbelievable right hand, which Anthony Joshua's chin was in the way, and knocked him down. I was actually surprised that he got up from that shot, but he did get up from that shot. And it was a great fight, great night for boxing.
Just on Daniel Dubois, I mean, we've seen him really come full circle over recent years. He had that loss to Joe Joyce. He gave a good account of himself against Oleksandr Usyk, but again came up short there. What have you made of the turnaround from him? You've had the win over Jarrell Miller, the win over Filip Hrgović, and of course, that knockout win over Anthony Joshua.
Let me tell you, he did the work. All those fights that he had that you just mentioned was a good work for him, and he gained experience. He learned from them, and together he put all those fights that he fought and all the learning that took place for him in those fights. He brought that all together and brought it back into this fight with Anthony Joshua, and you could say this was the night. This was the night that he slayed the king, and he's definitely the king slayer.
Now, you're somebody who knows a thing or two about heavyweight rematches. Of course, in your career, you were very successful, a perfect record in rematches. There's a lot of talk about Dubois Joshua 2 potentially happening at some point next year. Do you think that's advisable? Do you think we should see Dubois versus Joshua 2?
Well, it's going to be kind of like the same thing. Dubois is going to be coming after you again. And when he's done that to you the first time, it's going to be easier for him to do it to you the second time unless you make some drastic changes. So, if he's going to do the rematch, he needs to make some drastic changes in his boxing.
Now, of course, you made those drastic changes and in emphatic fashion, certainly in the Hasim Rahman rematch. Everybody remembers how you righted those wrongs in your career. How difficult is it to do that? What do you have to do as a fighter? You have to look internally, look at yourself. Do you look at your training setup? Do you look at how do you go about preparing for a rematch after losing so conclusively first time round?
Great question. Great question. For me, it was easy because how I lost with like basically a one punch type of thing. You know, the guy threw a punch and my chin happened to be in the way of it. And, you know, before I left the fight, I already knew what I needed to do to win the rematch. So I had the rematch in my head before I left the ring. For Anthony Joshua going into a rematch, he has to look deep within himself and say, well, does he want it? Then he has to realize, well, what did he do wrong? And then go and right the wrongs, basically.
Another fight or another potential alternative, I suppose, to Dubois Joshua 2 is the fight that we've been all talking about for many, many years now. Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury, who, of course, has business to take care of himself against Oleksandr Usyk towards the end of this year. Do you think we still see that fight at some point? Joshua Fury, it would be a big fight for British boxing, but admittedly on the back of a loss for Anthony Joshua. Tyson Fury, of course, unsuccessful last time out against Oleksandr Usyk. It doesn't feel that we're that close to it.
Any British, where you have two British fighters, is a great fight. It's always a great promotion. It always brings in the streets. It always brings in the country, who they like the best. Who does the country like, And I say that if Anthony Joshua fights Tyson Fury, it'd be a great fight. But, would it be a great fight for Anthony Joshua? It'll be probably a great fight for Tyson Fury, but will it be a good fight for Anthony Joshua?
Final one on the current heavyweight scene. I mentioned to you previously, Tyson Fury has his own rematch to prepare for against Oleksandr Usyk. Razor thin loss the first time around to Oleksandr Usyk. Tyson Fury recently said that he doesn't need to change anything in the rematch, just needs to do more of the same, essentially, without being caught. Do you think it's as simple as that, or does he need to make some adjustments against Oleksandr Usyk?
No, it's not as simple as that. He does need to make some adjustments. If he didn't make any adjustments, then he would lose the fight again. So he would have to make some adjustments to win the fight. So he definitely has to go in there with a focused attitude and being able to throw a lot more punches.
Is that just Tyson being Tyson, kind of saying that, not willing to give too much away, or do you think he genuinely believes that that's kind of what he has to do, the rematch?
No, I don't think he wants to give too much away. And I think we're going to get a different Tyson for this fight. I think he realizes, what he did wrong in the first fight.
Oleksandr Usyk, obviously a kind of naturally smaller man. You fought a naturally smaller man yourself once upon a time in Evander Holyfield, or not once upon a time, twice upon a time back in the day. How do you think Oleksandr Usyk, a kind of a smaller heavyweight, would have got on in the 90s in your day?
He would have got on good. I mean, just look at how Evander Holyfield got on. Oleksandr Usyk is just the same size, just as good, and I think he would do just as well.
Final quick couple from me, Lennox, is final one on the kind of the state of play as we are. I know you did some bits with Frazer Clarke recently, who of course unfortunately was knocked out in the first round by Fabio Wardley. First and foremost, what a spectacular performance from Fabio Wardley, another British heavyweight who's got a lot of eyes on him at the minute.
Yeah, Fabio came out like a champion. He came out throwing some great punches. I still remember the fact that what he said about me. But what I'm saying about him now, he threw a good jab, he threw great punches out there, and he looked good, surprised everybody. I didn't think he was going to come out like that, but he won the fight.
And final word on Frazer, of course, you dealt with him in the build-up to that fight. Very, very close first fight. Second fight, of course, didn't go his way, but still young enough to come again.
Yeah, still young enough to come again. Things happen. In fights where a lot of people come out and they say, well, what happened to him? What happened? Sometimes you get days like that.
Before we let you go, Lennox, so kind of one of the bits I wanted to talk to you about is kind of, boxing, as we know, is a very tough sport. Not everybody comes out of the sport unscathed. You are one of the few, I think, for, long-term success stories. You achieved everything there is to achieve. You seem to have all of your faculties intact. You look younger than me, Lennox, despite being almost 60 years of age. What is your day-to-day like nowadays, I suppose? Kind of away from, doing the tours and doing bits. How do you spend your time? What do you do? Well, you seem to be somebody who's very, very much content within yourself.
Yeah, I spend a lot of family time. I've always got something to do, always somebody to train, always somebody to call on the phone. So I'm pretty busy.
You mentioned there's something to train. I know you've kind of dabbled in the gym with fighters over the years, and you've got a wealth of knowledge. You, of course, trained under one of the greatest trainers of all time in Emmanuel Stewart, who recently, it was the anniversary of his passing, somebody I know who's a huge influence to you. Have you ever kind of considered donning the pads, so to speak, full-time, becoming a trainer, or are you happy to kind of give advice to younger fighters as and when they need it?
Both. Give advice to younger fighters, plus train people as well, because I've got so much knowledge in my head, I can't keep it. So I'm happy to give it away.
Now, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of budding young heavyweights who are going to be watching this for some Lennox Lewis, some Lennoxisms, some pearls of wisdom from yourself. What pearls of wisdom could you give those young heavyweights at the start of their professional career?
Start of their career, always take every fight serious. Make sure you're in great shape for your fights, because I see a lot of boxers go into a fight and they're not in great shape. You're risking your life, so it's better to be in the best shape possible. So you make sure that nothing gets hurt, you don't get injured or anything like that.
Do you have any regrets, Lennox?
Yeah, one regret, that I don't know how to make apple pie. I wish I knew how to make apple pie.
Well, Geraldine Davies is over there. I'm quite sure she can whip up a nice apple pie in her spare time if she ever gets any. But Lennox, always a real pleasure to speak to you. Before I let you go, let's talk about it again. Where can people come and see you over the next few weeks? Because you're here, there, and everywhere. When does it start? And when can people get the tickets?
Gateshead, you can see me. I'm traveling to all the major cities, so make sure you look on my Instagram, look in the papers, make sure you come out to see me. Don't let me miss you, else you'll miss me.
The one and only Lennox Lewis. Get your tickets now, Goldstar Promotions. Lennox, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing News, and I'm sure we'll catch up very soon.
Thanks for having me.